today's discussion, look, to be honest, it's not so much about sharing necessarily the Pilbara minerals story, because I feel like, well, those of you that have been following us over the years, and that's a fair few of you in the Resource Rising Stars series, know a lot about what we're up to. We've weathered the storm. We've learned a lot of valuable lessons since the inception of the lithium development story at Pilbara back in 2015. And we're now just so well poised to take advantage of this next cycle. And it's really this next cycle that I'm keen to dwell on today and explain a bit about the dynamics emerging in the market and for that matter, why we think it's so well shaped well, for Pilbara Minerals participation, but also for WA as a whole, and the important part that we're going to play in the development of the, well, electrification of the globe. So we're in production. We're operating flat out of our Pilbara facility, and actually in the September quarter, we outperformed the nameplate capacity. We produced about 342,000 tonnes of spodumene concentrate for export via Port Hedland. And in parallel, we've been flat out on expansion initiatives, and some of those have come to fruition, so I'll explain a little bit more about how they're working. But the last 12 months has been a really remarkable period for the industry as a whole. We almost went through the lowest of the lows in pricing, actually roughly this time last year. Our sense was that demand was just starting to come back, but nonetheless, pricing for our spodumene concentrate was really poor. And it hurt, and it was hard work, but our team has learned some valuable lessons, and the intellectual property that we now have about the performance of a pegmatite to the spodumene mineralisation, the way it reports to your facility, what you've got to do to process it, to extract the maximum value and achieve the maximum recovery. They're all very, very hard-won lessons, but have us incredibly well positioned to participate in the pricing that's emerging and we would suspect likely to continue to emerge. Not only that, we had the benefit of being able to buy our neighbour who couldn't survive that same period. And now we've got the opportunity to double down with that expertise we learned on our facility and overlay it across the former Altura operations. Now we refer to it as the Nuggaju plant. So, a great position to be in, and one that we're looking forward to enjoying. You've heard already a bit about the growth that's going on in the industry. It's really incredible. It's being motivated by, and one of the reasons why we're all surprised is the effect of demand being brought forward post the impact of the pandemic. Governments around the world have been stimulating their economies to get them back into some sort of reasonable shape. And in so doing, one of the net beneficiaries for investment is the new energy sector. By new energy, I mean the application of renewable energy generation and the electrification of the transport industry, both of which have batteries or energy storage, but in particular lithium-ion batteries as a co-commitment. So that's had the effect of bringing forward demand, and that's one of the reasons why we're now all surprised. The next phase, which I would argue is already happening, is all about how the consumer behaves. Now, we don't see it in Australia because unfortunately, we're a laggard. But if you're in China, if you're in Europe, and arguably maybe it's starting to emerge in the US, it is a genuine option to buy an EV, a realistic option, cost competitive over the life cycle of the vehicle, and arguably it's the right thing to do. And they're doing it en masse. The story that's happening now in respect of growth in lithium raw materials is not just about China. It's now about the rest of the world. And that represents a big change for this cycle. a much, much larger global footprint for demand as compared to, you know, the wave in 2015 through to 2018 that was all about China. So hence you get these incredible growth stories, you know, amazing, you know, growth in minerals demand and chemicals demand getting into the hundreds of % per annum, not even tens, hundreds of %. Obviously, our industry has to be shaped to facilitate that growth, and that means incentive pricing. That's the phase that we're going through now to see the industry grow. So we're doing our best to respond. A couple of salient facts from our financial guidance for 2022. Big production growth. We only shipped, from memory, about 270,000 tonnes in FY21, not quite double that probably this time around in FY22, a function of the growth that's going on, and I'll explain how those projects unfold. We're genuinely competitive in respect of cost. Now we're going to be moving more waste this year and a little bit into next year, but in any case, we are going to be one of the lowest cost mines in the hard rock suite globally. And that's driven by our location, you know, being so close to the port of Port Hedland, but of course also economies of scale. It's becoming a very, very big mine. And then lastly, the fact that we've perfected recovery, which is not an easy thing to do. At nameplate these days, recovery is in the range of sort of 73 to 75% recovery to spodumene concentrate. So they're all important drivers, important parts of our business. As we grow, we're commissioning new projects, but we're not doing that in the absence of, we're not doing it as a greenfields project, we're doing it as a brownfields project. The first of those is the expansion at our Pilbara plant. We've just announced during the week that the first concentrators dropped out of that expansion initiative. That takes our Pilbara plant from 330,000 nameplate tonnes through to about 380,000 nameplate tonnes. It's a debottlenecking project, so it's not introducing any new process steps. It's just the same old business done with more equipment. We're bringing back the Nuggaju plant, and we produced the first concentrate there this week. Actually, we accelerated that work to try and bring it forward, given the opportunity we see in respect of pricing. And the team has done an amazing job to continue to deliver there. A shout out to the Pilbara Minerals team, who are all working at 120% to make sure that we can deliver what's required this year. And we're doing it in an environment where it's not easy. People, access to people, equipment, it's all getting harder. Manufacturing, getting access to steel, but our guys and girls are incredibly innovative, and as a result we're hitting or even exceeding our targets, so fantastic job from the team. Really, really pleased with the work that they've been undertaking. Given the scale and the resource at Pilbara and the reserve, our expectation is we will continue to keep growing the mine. Now, we haven't made any commitments for expansion beyond that sort of 580,000, 600,000 tonne range, but we're getting ourselves ready on the expectation that Pilbara will be one of the go-to mines for expansion capacity. So that's something that we'll look forward to in the future. Right, pricing and market structure. A lot of people feel that what's happening kind of sounds extraordinary. I like to think of it more as the new normal. And Tony started to sort of hit the nail on the head there as to what's happening with respect to the structure of the market. If I was to capture it in just a few words, it is that for this part of the cycle, there is going to be a lot more margin come to the miner. A bit of background to understand how that's achieved. In the period of time that the market was down, so the depths of 2019 and into the first part of 2020, as much as China's demand on the face of it was coming off, there was still significant investment going on. And we were still getting inquiry about participation in our business. How can we get access to offtake? And of course, those two things are not naturally coming together. On the one hand, pricing's collapsing, but on the other hand, you've got every man and their dog continuing to chase spodumene. And by the way, the development underway in China was not from fly-by-night groups. It's big, well-capitalised organisations entering the lithium or the battery raw materials supply chain, building out with significant capital investment. But they were doing it without any reference to locking in offtake. And our observation was that situation is unsustainable. There is going to be demand come back, and there is going to be a lot more buyers in the market, in which case we should get ready. So what does getting ready mean? Well, getting ready means obviously having your plants working effectively. If you can buy your neighbour cheaply, why not have a crack at that too? And set up a platform that allows you to access multiple buyers and establishes competitive tension. If the buying group has gone from 5 to 25 in the space of 5 years, and they don't have offtake, at some point in time they're going to fight tooth and nail to access it. And that's what we've unlocked with the establishment of our Battery Materials Exchange, the BMX platform. An auction to access your spodumene. Create the competitive tension, realise the marginal price that people are prepared to pay for what is obviously proving to be a scarce resource. And it's been a raging success, and we're going to make more of it over time. So we've run a couple of auctions, and the effect of those has been pretty extraordinary. The last historical high, I was obviously watching what was happening because we were developing the Pilbara project. It was sort of late 2017, early 2018, and spodumene was going for $950 US a tonne, delivered to China, and that was it. And at exactly the same time that was happening, the chemicals players in China were selling the value-added chemical for $24,000 a tonne. The spread between the margin applicable to the miner and the margin applicable to the chemical converter was out of whack. So we were all about making sure that the next time that happened, let's make sure we realise the right margin in the spodumene product that's available. And here we are today. Our last auction, the spodumene went for the equivalent of $2,500 a tonne, the same tonne that sold for $950 back in 2017, 2018. And as a result of true price transparency via the BMX platform, the margin has been transferred to the miner when the mineral is scarce. And I would like to think that that situation is with us for a little while yet. The second order effect out of what's happening is the ability to open up our negotiations with our existing offtake customers and have a conversation with them about what the spodumene's really worth. You know, we need to reopen our offtake agreements. Now, the good news is that we always made that facility available. And I can't be definitive about it because those conversations are still ongoing, but I can tell you there is a level of pragmatism there from our customers about what it means to maintain continuity of supply. Don't cut me off. I'll give you more margin and you'll keep, and we, as in Pilbara Minerals, will keep the tonnes flowing. And as a result, there is going to be a wholesale re-rate in the value of the spodumene, whether it's a spot tonne or whether it's an ongoing, longer-dated offtake relationship. We see people reference, you know, today's price being something like, for argument's sake, you know, an offtake, $1,000 a tonne, maybe $1,100 a tonne. Our view is offtake is also going to be a lot higher than that. It's that simple, because it's a scarce resource. And the miners are going to be the net beneficiary. All right, I suspect I'm going to run out of time. The last thing I'd like to touch on is where we take Pilbara Minerals next. So today's business, it's fantastic. We're upstream and we're a merchant seller of spodumene. In Tony's words, we're capturing more economic rent, and that's brilliant. That's really good business. And it's going to be good business, I would suspect, for some couple of years yet. But it's not the long game. Given that Pilbara is going to be around for decades to come, we should think about how we establish a portfolio of products. A portfolio of, you know, spodumene in offtake, spodumene for the spot market, and value-added products. that allow us to participate more deeply in the supply chain, an element of vertical integration. And then lastly, diversity by jurisdiction. Where are we selling the products? So that it's not just beholden by majority to China. So that's exactly what we're on about, and we've got that well and truly underway. The first of those is you're probably mostly familiar with downstream, the relationship that's proposed with POSCO, joint investment in chemical facilities underwritten by Pilbara spodumene, and we get the chance to participate in the economic advantage by having that vertically integrated. And then the slightly newer thread is the concept of a midstream product, a value-added lithium salt. Now, the advantage in this product, it's multifaceted, but the two probably key ones are, if it's value-added at the mine, you can get rid of the waste in the right location and it becomes very competitive to international markets. So getting a higher value lithium product into Europe, into the US, into Asia, or Asia sort of ex-China. And that's also important to us. The last thing I would say about the midstream product is you can also create an incredibly low carbon footprint in the supply chain. So that's why the project work that we have underway with Calix, another great Australian company that's looking to electrify the spodumene calcination process. And with all those things, Pilbara Minerals becomes a well-diversified player, albeit taking advantage of fantastic market conditions that exist today. That's it, mate. I'll hand back to you, Paul. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.